Welcome to 2026. You made it through 2025 and the calendar has reset. But what lies in store for the year ahead? I'm not psychically inclined, although I am physics-ally inclined, and after working out a bunch over the last 12 months, I suppose I'm also physically inclined. I mean, you should see my core muscles. But sadly, none of that lets me see the future. And I'm afraid I can't tell you what lies ahead. But I can make some guesses. And among them is the expectation that you're going to be entering 2026 with less disposable income than you might have had last year. It'll either be a new thing to you, in which case you're pretty lucky, or it'll be another year of the tough slog you've been on ever since you left your childhood home. And if you're lucky enough to even be able to do so, buying the new hotness in tech or cars or fast fashion only makes that meagre bit of budget you have every month after paying the essentials disappear. So today, I'm going to look at something we all think you should be doing in 2026. Tech-hoarding your car, motorcycle, or indeed bicycle, ditching the shiny new and keeping what you got. After all, if the youths are tech-hoarding their gadgets, shouldn't we all be tech-hoarding our transportation too? And if the concept is new to you, don't worry, I'll explain it all. Yo, it's your girl Nikki. I have entered the chat. I'm about to talk to you about something that's apparently a vibe. I have consulted the youths, and tech hoarding is vital for your drip. I have read the comments, and I know that if you don't want to flex, then you need to have a previous gen phone. I have stared at the algorithmic abyss, and it was skibbity. And today, I bring you tech hoarding. Okay, I'm going to stop that now. Yeah, I know that was cringe. That was the point. Tech hoarding is when you stop chasing the new, refuse to be financially jump scared by product launches, and instead max out the usefulness of the stuff you already own. No cap, it's not about being broke, it's about being done. You don't need the latest phone, the newest car, or whatever the algorithm decided you should want this week. You just need your existing tech to keep doing the job. Preferably better than the manufacturer intended. Just as with the housing market, where investors and venture capitalists have realised that you can have continuous income from people who can't afford to buy a house and have to rent. The same's increasingly true of other manufactured goods, where manufacturers have realised that if you're always renting, they are always getting money from you. So it's a delightful act of rebellion when you decide you do not need to rent the latest phone or the latest car, when the older one you probably already own, or you can own without putting yourself in massive debt, is perfectly fine. TLDR, if you're fed up with corporations telling you what you should have and when, tech hoarding is right there, next to right to repair, make do and mend, and upcycling. Right now, we're in a moment where people are spending more on rent than at any point in modern history. Some analysts say that in 2024, renters were spending around 42% of their pre-tax income on rent. Pre-tax, not post-tax. And if you were born any time after 1980, there's a good chance you don't own a home yet, not because you did something wrong, but because it's nearly impossible to qualify for a mortgage and keep up with the $2,500 a month rent at the same time. Unless, of course, you inherited generational wealth or had a family member help you onto the housing ladder by means of dying and leaving you money in their will. Something I know firsthand can make all the difference. My daughter, an actual Gen Z, who also happens to have a well-paying job, recently rented her first apartment. She's 22 years old, and she's paying more than half of what I paid per month in 2015 for a full-size townhouse with 3 floors, 3 bathrooms and a garage. But she's renting a 500 square foot 1-bedroom flat in a not-so-good part of town. That's inflation and corporate greed. Tech hoarding, keeping existing tech for as long as you can before replacing it, grows out of that reality. It's a conscious decision to step off the treadmill of constant upgrades and endless consumption. Yes, part of it is financial. When money is tight, it makes sense, but it's also philosophical. It's choosing not to comply with a continual upgrade cycle of the late-stage capitalist hellscape that we all live in. It's rejecting the idea that new automatically means better. And it's not a new idea. It's a mindset many of our parents, especially those who grew up in post-war Europe, took for granted. Make do and mend. Use it up. Fix it. Keep it going for as long as you can. That way of thinking doesn't come from nostalgia. It came from necessity. And in 2026, it's making a comeback. Some of the reasons are subtly different, but here's why it applies in the EV world. In 2026, we're going to see the cost of things rise. We've been talking for years about new affordable battery technology and improved ways to make EVs more accessible. And while it's true that battery prices have fallen dramatically and cars could be cheaper, for example, in China, EVs are actually cheaper than their fossil fuel vehicle counterparts about 2/3 of the time, thanks to massive drops in the cost of components and batteries. But for the most part, in much of the Western world, trends are going the other way. Increasing geopolitical uncertainty and rising nationalist viewpoints mean that global trade is being hammered in many places. Some countries are in or entering a recession, and we're seeing political pushback, sometimes effective, sometimes less so, against EVs, or at least against measures designed to encourage people into buying them. The vehicles themselves? The automakers are leaning more heavily on subscription services for in-car features. Want navigation? Extra. Remote start and stop? Extra. Heated seats? Extra. Again. Worse still, with many manufacturers eschewing smartphone integrations like Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, your "I'll just use my phone" mentality may not work with the newest models. Last year, Kate and I spent a not insignificant amount of time in our new car reviews discussing subscription models and, unfortunately, some of the ways automakers now add nag screens to cajole you into giving them money. Ain't nobody got time for that. If your current EV serves your needs, keep it. And particularly in the US, where a lot of automakers have killed their EV range and the government's made it hard to obtain most EVs available worldwide, if your current gas car serves your needs and there isn't an EV in the marketplace that does what you want it to, then wait and use alternative forms of transit if you can, like public transit or walking or cycling. And when you do need to use that gas car, plan your use so it uses as little fuel as possible. Before we get into how to actively tech hoard your EV, let's acknowledge something practical. While some things have changed in the EV space over the last 5 to 10 years, others haven't. Sticker prices, depending on the type of vehicle and the market, might have dropped a bit, but buying a new EV today is still a major investment. And if you live in the US, here's the reality. It often feels like policy is written for oil companies, especially when you consider how the US government has positioned itself around Venezuela's oil reserves, some of the largest in the world, and a magnet for intense geopolitical interest and intervention. Meanwhile, incentives that actually help everyday people afford new EVs and reduce our reliance on foreign oil and fossil fuels? Withdrawn. MIA. Other things in the EV space have changed. Fast charging today is certainly faster than it was a decade ago. At one point, 50 kilowatts DC was considered the standard. Today, that is considered inadequate. Most people now look for at least 150 kilowatts DC as the bare minimum. And the newest and most expensive EVs on the market have the quickest, highest power charging capabilities. But EVs today are also heavier than they were a decade ago. That means even though battery capacities are larger and fast charging rates are higher, real-world efficiency has dropped a little. And while charge rates are faster, you're likely spending more time plugged in than you might like to think. And range? Sure, 400 miles per charge looks good on paper. But your bladder probably disagrees. And even if your EV does 300 plus miles or 480 plus kilometers per charge under ideal conditions, chances are that you won't be driving that far non-stop on a daily basis. Once a year? Maybe? Every day? Unlikely. Late last year, I drove from Portland, Oregon to Los Angeles in my spouse's Chevrolet Bolt EV. Thanks to modern improvements in charging infrastructure, the trip was pleasantly achievable, combining P-stops with short, partial, fast charging sessions. It was surprisingly time efficient and far more preferable to the old way, which was spend 80 plus minutes to get as close to full as possible on a DC fast charger, then drive while full of range anxiety and having a full bladder until the next known good charging stop. Luckily, those days are mostly behind us. That said, there are outliers. If you live somewhere where winter temperatures hammer range, larger capacity, newer EVs may have a logical edge, especially those with heat pumps instead of resistive heaters. Similarly, if you're far from the nearest fast charger, lack convenient overnight charging, regularly make super long trips, or tow frequently, your upgrade path may be more justified. But those use cases sit outside the peak of the bell curve for EV ownership. If you fit into one of those situations, tech hoarding might not be ideal. But for the majority of owners, if your EV, e-bike or electric motorcycle already does what you need it to, why upgrade? Especially when money is tight and the only extra features are the ones a company has decided you need. Moreover, can I just throw in some acknowledgement of the level of frustration many of us are experiencing with the auto market right now? Automakers who said they were going to make a new EV, then decide they won't because of market conditions. Market conditions which, let's be frank, many of the automakers bought and paid for, and which are often more about political posturing than actually what customers want, because what consumers want is generally not what automakers say they want. There's a smarter, more equitable solution. Let's tech hoard our EVs. But first, did you know that we are here because of our amazing community of supporters on Patreon, YouTube, Discord, and Ko-fi? Unlike a lot of channels, we don't take big advertorial sponsorship deals, and we only exist because you support us. There's a link in the down below on how to join, plus links to our channel on the Fediverse, because in addition to being independent, we also think everyone should have free access to information away from YouTube. So, tech hoarding. Let's get to those tips. First, set aside a budget for servicing. As vehicles age, regardless of fuel type, they'll need regular maintenance. Luckily, EVs have less to service long term, but you still need to check brakes, tyres, steering and suspension regularly. Follow manufacturer recommended service intervals for cooling systems and save up for the rare but essential battery cooling loop flush and reduction gearbox oil change. Yes, EVs don't have traditional gearboxes, but they do have single-speed reduction gearboxes that need lubrication. These services happen infrequently, but when they're done right, they will dramatically extend your EV's lifespan. Your budget should be based on ownership costs shared online by other owners of your vehicle's make and model. Make a line item in your monthly budget for it, and it's far cheaper than a new car payment and will keep your existing EV running smoothly for years. As for where to get it done, if you are technically minded, you might handle some of it yourself. For more complex or high voltage work, choose a specialist familiar with your make and model of vehicle. It doesn't have to be a dealership, just someone competent, reliable, certified and trustworthy, which many more independent garages now offer in the space as an alternative to overinflated dealer pricing. Second, join an online forum or owners group for your vehicle. Many problems can be diagnosed through a simple post. If money is tight, it's far easier to get a rough idea of an issue by asking questions and sharing photos or video with fellow owners than it is to drop a few $100s at the dealer, only to find out that your 12-volt battery needs replacing. Third, bone up on your vehicle and its common problems. Learn about typical faults and keep an eye out for them. Master simple tasks like cabin air filter changes and windscreen wiper installations, and keep spare parts and consumables on hand. I actually keep a set of cabin air filters for both the Chevrolet Bolt and the F-150 Lightning in my cupboard, and I always refit wiper blades myself rather than pay a dealership to do it. Fourth, buy a dongle. I know I say this all the time, but seriously, onboard diagnostics dongles, OBD-II, are the gateway to better ownership. No, they will not void your warranty, but they will give you a more informed idea of what's going on inside your EV's brains and within its powertrain, without forcing you to go to the dealership for that very expensive diagnostic. Make sure you buy a dongle that's compatible with your smartphone or tablet, and be sure to download the special PID codes, or indeed aftermarket custom apps, that correspond to your car for full data granularity. Your local neighbourhood owners group should have links to the specific goods for your particular car. Fifth and finally, add on what you really want to zig-a-zig. Add on what you want. That is, go with aftermarket upgrades for your vehicle. Want semi-autonomous driving capabilities? Look to a Comma 4 system. Compatibility varies. Want wireless CarPlay or Android Auto? Add one of those off-the-shelf adapters. Want video cameras to protect your car while it's parked and while you're driving? Add a dashcam system. All of these add-ons will increase the money you're spending on your car, but they'll also add value. No cap, you're lit, keeping your cheddar for high-key stuff like doom spending. Okay, sorry, that's wrong. I'm sorry. I am 46 years old. I remember how to fix my TDK with a pencil. I know what the screech of dial-up is. I've drunk from the hose. Don't worry. I'll reprimand myself in the room with 10,000 lines of carefully typed BASIC followed by 6 hours of syntax error debugging. God, I'm old. Anyway, for things that aren't available, create them yourself. I've spent a lot of time in the last few years tinkering, and while not everyone likes making things from scratch, owning a 3D printer has allowed me to print all kinds of cool things from my home and my vehicles, the most recent of which was, of course, the 3D printed gear shifter console I used to convert my F-150 Lightning from a traditional oversized gear shifter to a rotary one. You might not want to splash the cash on a 3D printer, but many local libraries and makerspaces have them available, and even if not, there are a bunch of online services that will print you an item and then mail it to you. It's your car. Mod it your way. As long as it's still legal, of course. And there you have it. Tech hoarding, but for EVs. Very few of us can afford the extra money that a new car commands right now. Very few of us need a new vehicle in 2026, and frankly, if your current EV is doing the job, keep it. You might be surprised at what a difference that decision will make. After all, while EVs are sold as computers on wheels, we all know the pain and suffering that comes from being on that bleeding edge with tech. And as the age of enshittification continues, there are some things that we should just be content with as they are, especially if they still serve the original purpose we purchased them for. And if you're really jonesing for a new EV, shiny, buzztastic, flex level high, my friend, just pause for a sec. There's always used, which of course save you fast stacks, over a new model. But automakers keep dangling new models like carrots, only to either jack up the price or in many cases drop them entirely thanks to political and regulatory pushback. Yep, some of that comes straight from the folks in power who seem to love subsidising oil extraction overseas while buying EV owners the cold shoulder. So, before you reach for that checkbook... Sorry, okay, who am I kidding? Before you reach for that auto loan application form, consider your options. There's always Forza Horizon 6 this year, or if real-world driving is your thing without the wallet pain, Turo's got you. Thanks for watching to the end. If you made it this far, let me know in the down below what you've decided to tech hoard this year instead of replacing, and what your favourite Gen Z slang is, because then I'll know you've made it to the end too. We are 100% independent, and if you'd like us to stay that way, there's a link in the down below to support us on Patreon from $1.50 a month, so you can join the long list of amazing channel supporters scrolling by right now. You can also send us money on Ko-fi, buy some swag from our swag store, like this phenomenal t-shirt, and please hit subscribe. YouTube won't reliably tell you we've pushed a new video though, so make sure you also follow us on social media or join our Discord chat room, link below. Thanks for watching, thanks for helping be the positive change in the world, and until next time, keep evolving!